The unusual encounter. Ethan leaned back in his chair, staring out the window of the cargo spaceship horizon. Endless stars dotted the black void outside, and the hum of the ship's engines was the only sound filling the cabin. It had been another boring run, hauling supplies from one colony to another. He sighed. "Hey, Ethan," came a voice from the comms. "You awake, or do I need to shock some life into you?" It was Captain Rice, his commanding officer. Ethan smirked, tapping the earpiece. "I'm awake, Captain." "Barely. Just wondering if the universe has anything exciting to offer today." As if the universe had heard him, a loud alarm blared through the ship. Ethan shot up, his heart racing. The comms crackled again. "Unidentified signal detected," said the ship's eye in its cold, robotic voice. "Source: unknown. Distance: 20,000 kilometers." Ethan's eyes widened. An unknown signal. That wasn't supposed to happen in this sector. It was uncharted, a dead zone as far as he knew. "Captain, did you hear that?" he asked. "Yeah," Rice replied, her tone sharp. "Hold tight. I'm scanning the area." The crew of Horizon had always been told to avoid distress signals in uncharted regions. It was usually a trap, scavengers, pirates, or worse. But something about this signal felt different. It wasn't random noise. It was deliberate. Minutes later, Captain Rice made her decision. "We're investigating. Ethan, gear up. You're coming with me." Ethan's stomach churned as he grabbed his tools and followed the captain to the docking bay. The small scout ship was prepped for launch. "What if it's dangerous?" he asked. "Then we handle it," Rice said, her voice steady. "But if there's someone out there who needs help, we don't leave them behind." The scout ship launched into the dark expanse. The signal grew louder as they approached. Finally, they saw it. A sleek, silver vessel, unlike anything Ethan had ever seen. It floated lifelessly in space, its surface glowing faintly with strange patterns. "That's not human," Rice whispered, her voice filled with awe. They docked with the alien ship, and Ethan's nerves buzzed with both fear and excitement. The airlock hissed as it opened, and a faint blue light spilled into their ship. "Stay close," Rice said, stepping inside. The interior of the alien vessel was mesmerizing. The walls pulsed with light, and the air felt thick with energy. Ethan's tools beeped wildly, detecting advanced technology far beyond human understanding. And then they found her. A figure lay slumped in a transparent pod, her body bathed in soft, golden light. She was humanoid, but her skin shimmered like liquid metal, and her hair floated as if caught in an invisible breeze. Ethan's breath caught. She was beautiful, otherworldly. But as he stepped closer, her eyes snapped open. She moved faster than he could react, stepping out of the pod with an eerie grace. Her glowing eyes locked onto Ethan, and she spoke in perfect English. "Show me what that thing between your legs can do, human." Ethan froze. What did she mean? What thing was she talking about? Before he could speak, alarms blared throughout the alien ship. Something had activated. "Captain," Ethan said, his voice trembling. "Stay alert," Rice barked. "I think we just woke something up." Lyra's secret. Ethan's heart pounded in his chest as the alien woman stepped closer. Her glowing eyes scanned him with intense curiosity, her head tilting slightly as if analyzing every inch of his body. Captain." Ethan stammered, glancing nervously at Reyes. The captain stood firm, her blaster drawn but lowered. "We don't want trouble," she said, her voice calm but firm. "We're just here to help." The alien's lips curled into a faint smile, though it felt more like a calculated gesture than genuine warmth. "Help," she repeated, her voice smooth, but laced with an unsettling edge. "You're kind, always eager to help. Such a fascinating trait." Ethan took a cautious step back, feeling the weight of her gaze. Who are you?" he asked. "My name is Lyra," she said, her words flowing effortlessly. "I traveled far to study your kind, human. You interest me." Ethan frowned. Study us. What does that mean? Before she could answer, the ship's alarms grew louder. The walls pulsed with light, and strange symbols began to swirl across the surfaces, as though the ship were alive. What's happening? Rise demanded, her grip tightening on her blaster. Lyra glanced around, a flicker of concern crossing her face. My vessel. It senses intruders. It's activating defensive protocols. Defensive protocols? Ethan echoed, his voice rising in panic. What kind of defenses? Lyra raised her hand, and the walls seemed to respond to her gesture, dimming slightly. Calm yourself, human. I've disabled the more aggressive measures. For now. Rise snapped. Look, we came here because your ship sent a distress signal. If you don't want our help, we'll leave. Lyra's expression softened, her gaze locking onto Ethan once more. No, she said quietly. I want you to stay. I need your help. Ethan blinked, caught off guard. Help with what? Lyra hesitated, a rare moment of vulnerability crossing her face. My ship is damaged. I cannot leave this place without repairs. Your kind, your ingenuity, may be the key to saving me. Rise exchanged a skeptical glance with Ethan. What's the catch? She asked. Lyra's smile returned, but this time it was tinged with something darker. The catch, Captain, is that I have been observing your species for a long time. My people have been watching, evaluating. Evaluating for what? Ethan asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Lyra stepped closer, her voice dropping to a near whisper, to determine if your kind is worth sparing, or if you are a threat that must be eliminated. Silence filled the room as her words sank in. Ethan felt a cold chill run down his spine. What? Rise said, her voice sharp. Are you saying your people are planning to attack us? Lyra tilted her head. Attack? No, not yet, but the decision is close. That's why I'm here. To decide for myself. Ethan's mind raced. This wasn't just a stranded alien. They were dealing with a scout, someone who held humanity's fate in her hands. And if you decide we're a threat? Ethan asked, dreading the answer. Lyra's eyes glowed brighter, and her smile widened. Then I will call for the fleet. The ship suddenly shuddered, interrupting the tense moment. Ethan stumbled as the floor beneath them shifted. What now? Rise barked, steadying herself. Lyra turned, her expression serious. We are no longer alone. Ethan's stomach twisted as he glanced at the scanner on his wrist. Several blips appeared on the screen. Unidentified ships, closing in fast. Scavengers, Lyra said, her tone grim. They must have picked up my signal. They will tear this ship apart and kill us all. Ethan's fear turned to determination. Not if we stop them first. Lyra raised an eyebrow, intrigued. You would fight for me, human, even after what I told you. Ethan tightened his grip on his toolkit. I'll fight because it's the right thing to do. That's what humans do. Lyra studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Very well, Ethan. Show me what your kind is capable of. The escape plan. The ship trembled as the scavengers' vessels drew closer. Outside the viewport, faint streaks of red and blue lights zipped through the void. Energy pulses, fired to disable their defenses. Ethan's pulse raced. He had repaired his fair share of ships, but he had never been in the middle of an actual space battle. He glanced at Captain Reyes, who was already assessing the situation. Ethan, focus, she snapped. What do we know about these scavengers? They're pirates, Lyra interjected, her voice calm but cold. They prey on the weak and salvage what remains. If they board this ship, they will strip it, and us, down to nothing. Not happening, Rice said firmly. We need a plan. Ethan, can you get the ship's systems online? Ethan hesitated. I don't know. This tech is way beyond anything I've seen. I can try, but I'll need her help. He turned to Lyra, who regarded him with mild amusement. You're asking for my help now. Ethan shot her a glare. Do you want to die here or not? Lyra's lips curved into a small smile. Fair point. She walked over to one of the glowing panels and placed her hand on it. The symbols on the walls shifted and danced as the ship responded to her presence. What are you doing? Rise asked, her voice wary. Restoring minimal systems, Lyra replied. I can give us limited shielding and maneuverability, but weapons, those are beyond repair for now. Ethan's mind churned. If we can't fight back, we need to outsmart them. Is there any way to create a distraction? Lyra glanced at him, intrigued. What do you have in mind, human? Ethan looked around the room, his gaze landing on a cluster of glowing orbs embedded in the wall. What are those? Energy cores, Lyra said. They power the ship's non-critical functions. Can you overload one? Ethan asked, his voice gaining confidence. Lyra raised an eyebrow. You want to cause an explosion? Ethan nodded. If we time it right, we can make it look like the ship is breaking apart. It'll confuse them long enough for us to escape. Rise folded her arms. It's risky. If we mess this up, we won't, Ethan said firmly. He turned to Lyra. Can you do it? Lyra studied him for a moment, then placed her hand on the wall. The orbs pulsed brighter, and a low hum filled the room. It's done, she said. The overload will occur in 5 minutes. We need to be ready to move. Move where? Rise asked. Lyra pointed to a small vessel docked at the far end of the chamber. My escape pod. It's designed for short distances. It will get us to safety. Ethan frowned. If it's functional, why didn't you use it before? Lyra's expression darkened. Because it only has room for 2. Rise and Ethan exchanged a glance. We're not leaving anyone behind, Rise said firmly. Lyra sighed. Your loyalty is admirable, but impractical. The scavengers will show no mercy. If you try to save everyone, you'll save no one. Before Rise could argue, the ship jolted violently. The scavengers were close now, their boarding clamps latching onto the hull. Decision time, Lyra said. Are we doing this or not? Ethan clenched his fists. We're doing it, but we're all getting out of here, somehow. The 3 of them sprinted toward the escape pod as the ship groaned and shook under the scavengers' assault. Ethan could hear the hiss of cutting tools slicing through the airlock. Faster, Rise shouted. They reached the pod just as the countdown reached its final seconds. The ship trembled violently as the overloaded energy core exploded, sending a shockwave rippling through the scavenger ships. Ethan glanced back and saw the chaos unfolding. The scavengers' vessels spinning wildly, their systems disrupted by the blast. Get in, Rise ordered, pushing Ethan and Lyra into the cramped pod. But what about? Ethan started, but Rise cut him off. Just go, she barked, slamming the hatch shut. The pod launched into space, leaving the damaged ship and the scavengers behind. Ethan's chest tightened as he watched the horizon fade into the distance. She stayed behind, he whispered, his voice filled with disbelief. Lyra's expression remained unreadable. Your captain made a choice, a noble one. Ethan's jaw clenched. Then we'll make sure it wasn't for nothing. Lyra tilted her head, studying him. You humans, you never cease to surprise me. The pod drifted silently through space, heading toward an unknown destination. But Ethan's mind was already racing with plans. He wasn't about to let this be the end. A fragile alliance. The escape pod hummed softly as it drifted through the endless black of space. Ethan sat quietly, staring out the small viewport. His mind replayed the last few moments aboard the horizon, the explosion, and Captain Rice staying behind to buy them time. Lyra watched him, her glowing eyes unreadable. Your captain showed great courage, she said, her voice breaking the heavy silence. That is uncommon in my experience. Ethan turned to her, his jaw tight. Humans protect each other. It's what we do. Lyra raised an eyebrow. Fascinating. Most species I've encountered would have left without hesitation. They'd value survival over sentiment. Well, we're not most species, Ethan snapped. Lyra studied him, her expression a mixture of curiosity and something else he couldn't quite place. Clearly. The pod's navigation system beeped, and Lyra leaned over the controls. "We're approaching a habitable planet," she said. "It's uncharted, but it should sustain us for now." Ethan frowned. "How long can this pod keep us alive?" "Not long," Lyra admitted. "The life support system is limited. We'll need to find resources on the surface." The planet came into view, a swirling mass of green and blue, with patches of golden desert. As the pod entered the atmosphere, turbulence shook the small vessel, and Ethan gripped the seat tightly. "Hold on," Lyra said calmly, her hands steady on the controls. The pod broke through the clouds, descending rapidly. Ethan caught glimpses of dense forests, winding rivers, and jagged mountains. Finally, with a jarring thud, the pod crash-landed in a clearing surrounded by towering trees. Ethan groaned as he unstrapped himself, his body sore from the impact. He glanced at Lyra, who seemed unaffected, her movements as fluid and precise as ever. "Nice landing," he muttered. Lyra smirked faintly. "You're still alive, aren't you?" They stepped out of the pod, the humid air of the planet hitting Ethan's face. The forest was alive with strange sounds, chirping, clicking, and low growls in the distance. The sky above was a pale purple, with two suns casting an eerie glow. "This place is something," Ethan said, looking around warily. "It will do," Lyra replied, her tone neutral. She turned and gestured toward the pod. "We'll need to secure the vessel and scout for food and water." Ethan nodded, already pulling out his toolkit. "I'll see if I can patch up the pod systems, maybe even send out a signal." Lyra tilted her head. "A signal? To whom?" "To anyone who can help," Ethan said firmly. Lyra's expression darkened. "That would include my people." Ethan froze, realizing the risk. "You're saying they'd come here? That they'd still attack us?" Lyra's glowing eyes narrowed. "If they find me here, they'll assume I failed my mission. Their response would be immediate." Ethan exhaled, running a hand through his hair. "So, we're on our own." "For now," Lyra said, stepping past him. "I'll scout the area. You stay here and work on the pod." Ethan watched her disappear into the forest, her movements unnervingly silent. He shook his head and got to work, focusing on the pod's damaged systems. Hours passed, and the suns began to set, casting long shadows across the clearing. Ethan's stomach growled, but he pushed the hunger aside. He couldn't afford to stop now. A sudden rustling in the trees made him freeze. He grabbed a wrench, his heart pounding. "Lyra," he called out. No answer. The rustling grew louder, and then a massive, six-legged creature burst into the clearing. Its body was covered in thick, spiked scales, and its glowing yellow eyes locked onto Ethan. "Oh, you've got to be kidding me," Ethan muttered, backing away slowly. The creature let out a guttural roar, its sharp teeth glinting in the fading light. Ethan's mind raced. He had no weapon, no plan. Before he could react, Lyra appeared from the shadows, her hands glowing with energy. She moved with lightning speed, placing herself between Ethan and the beast. "Stay back," she commanded, her voice echoing with authority. The creature hesitated, but only for a moment. It lunged at Lyra, its claws slashing through the air. She dodged effortlessly, her glowing hands striking the beast's side. A burst of energy sent it stumbling, but it wasn't down yet. "Ethan," Lyra shouted, "find a way to distract it." Ethan looked around frantically, his eyes landing on a broken energy core from the pod. Grabbing it, he activated the core and hurled it at the creature. The core exploded in a burst of light and sound, disorienting the beast. Lyra seized the opportunity, delivering a final powerful blow. The creature let out a pained cry before retreating into the forest. Ethan collapsed to the ground, breathing heavily. What was that thing? A predator, Lyra said simply, her glowing eyes scanning the tree line. This planet is more dangerous than I anticipated. Ethan looked at her, his fear giving way to admiration. You saved me. Lyra met his gaze, her expression unreadable. You're valuable to me, human. I need you alive. Ethan smirked weakly. Thanks for the vote of confidence. Lyra turned toward the pod. We'll need to fortify this area. Nightfall will bring more predators. Ethan nodded, his determination renewed. Then let's get to work. The hidden threat. Night had fallen on the alien planet, and the clearing around the escape pod was bathed in the eerie glow of bioluminescent plants. Ethan worked tirelessly, reinforcing the pod with whatever materials he could scavenge. Lyra stood nearby, her glowing eyes scanning the dark forest for any signs of movement. I think that'll hold, Ethan said, stepping back to admire his makeshift defenses. He wiped the sweat from his brow, though the tension in his chest refused to ease. Lyra tilted her head, her voice calm but laced with skepticism. You're remarkably resourceful for someone with such limited technology. Ethan shot her a look. Yeah, well, we humans have a habit of making do with what we've got. Lyra smiled faintly, though it didn't reach her eyes. That much is clear. They both turned at the sound of distant growls, echoing from deeper within the forest. Ethan gripped the wrench in his hand tightly. I hope your energy tricks can hold them off if they get through, he said. They will, Lyra replied, her confidence unshaken. But that is not our greatest concern. Ethan frowned. What do you mean? Lyra hesitated, her glowing eyes flickering slightly. I didn't just call for help from my people. When I restored partial functionality to the ship's systems, I inadvertently activated a beacon, a signal meant for my fleet. Ethan froze, the wrench nearly slipping from his hand. You what? It was unintentional, Lyra said, her tone defensive. But the signal is out there now. If they intercept it, they will come. Ethan's heart sank. And by they, you mean the same people who are deciding whether to conquer humanity. Lyra nodded. Yes, and if they come here, they will assume I've failed in my mission. Their response will be swift and merciless. Ethan took a shaky breath, his mind racing. So not only do we have to worry about this planet trying to kill us, but we also have an alien fleet potentially on the way. Great, just great. Lyra stepped closer, her expression serious. If they come, your survival depends on convincing them of humanity's value. You must prove that your species is more than a threat. And how exactly do we do that? Ethan snapped. Throw them a welcome party. Show them how good we are at fixing things with duct tape. Lyra's lips curved into a faint smile. Humor, another fascinating human trait. Ethan shook his head, his frustration bubbling over. This isn't funny, Lyra. We're talking about the survival of my entire species. Lyra's expression softened, a rare moment of vulnerability breaking through her composed exterior. I understand your fear, Ethan, but I did not choose this mission lightly. My people believe that humans are dangerous, reckless, violent, unpredictable. I wanted to see for myself if that was true. And what do you think now? Ethan asked, his voice quieter. Lyra hesitated, her glowing eyes locking onto his. I think you're more complicated than I expected. You are capable of destruction, yes, but you are also capable of incredible resilience, ingenuity, and compassion. Ethan was about to respond when a loud roar echoed from the forest, closer this time. He turned toward the sound, his grip tightening on the wrench. Predators, Lyra said, her voice tense. They've caught our scent. Ethan glanced at her, his fear giving way to determination. Then we'd better be ready. Together, they fortified the pod's defenses, setting up makeshift barriers and traps. The growls grew louder, and soon glowing eyes appeared in the darkness beyond the tree line. The first creature lunged, a hulking beast with razor-sharp claws and teeth. Lyra stepped forward, her hands glowing with energy. She struck the beast with a precise blast, sending it crashing to the ground. More creatures emerged, their howls piercing the night. Ethan fought alongside Lyra, using tools and traps to keep the beasts at bay. The battle was chaotic, each moment a blur of adrenaline and fear. Finally, as the first rays of dawn broke through the trees, the last of the predators retreated, their bodies disappearing into the shadows. Ethan collapsed to the ground, exhausted but alive. "Is it always like this with you?" he asked, his voice hoarse. Lyra sat beside him, her expression unreadable. "Not always, but it seems to be a pattern when humans are involved." Ethan managed a weak laugh. "Glad I could keep things interesting." As the sun rose higher, Ethan's gaze drifted to the sky. A faint glimmer caught his eye, something metallic, reflecting the sunlight. "Lyra," he said, his voice suddenly serious. She followed his gaze, her expression darkening. "They're here." Ethan's stomach dropped. The alien fleet had arrived. The showdown. The metallic glimmers in the sky grew larger, revealing themselves as sleek, silver vessels descending toward the planet. Their triangular shapes and glowing blue engines moved in perfect synchronization, exuding a precision and power far beyond anything Ethan had seen. Ethan's heart pounded. "They're not wasting any time, are they?" Lyra stood beside him, her gaze fixed on the approaching ships. Her usually composed face showed a hint of unease. "This is a reconnaissance squad. They'll scan the area and report back to the fleet." "And then what?" Ethan asked, though he already knew the answer. Lyra's voice was grim. "If they perceive a threat, or if they decide I've failed, they'll destroy us. And they won't stop with this planet. Earth will be next." Ethan swallowed hard, his fear twisting into determination. "We can't let that happen. There has to be a way to stop them." Lyra turned to him, her glowing eyes sharp. "You're resourceful, Ethan, but this is beyond you. My people's technology is centuries ahead of yours. Resistance is futile." Ethan shook his head. "I'm not just going to roll over and accept it. If we're going down, we're going down fighting." Lyra's expression softened, a flicker of admiration crossing her face. "You humans truly are relentless." The alien ships hovered above the clearing, their engines emitting a low, menacing hum. A beam of light shot down from the lead vessel, forming a glowing circle on the ground. Moments later, 3 figures appeared within the circle, stepping forward with an air of authority. They were tall, sleek, and elegant, their metallic skin shimmering like liquid silver. Their eyes glowed like Lyra's, but carried an intensity that made Ethan's blood run cold. The leader stepped forward, his voice resonating like a deep bell. "Lyra, you have broken protocol." Lyra stepped forward, her posture stiff. "Commander Zevran, I am aware of the consequences." Zevran's gaze shifted to Ethan, his expression unreadable. "And yet you brought a human into this. Explain yourself." Ethan felt his chest tighten under the alien's scrutiny, but Lyra spoke before he could. "This human has demonstrated qualities that I believe are crucial to our evaluation. His ingenuity, his resilience, his compassion. They are traits that make humanity worth preserving." Zevran's glowing eyes narrowed. "You've allowed yourself to be influenced. Lyra, your mission was to assess objectively, not to form attachments." "I have not failed my mission," Lyra said firmly. "I have succeeded in understanding what makes humans unique." The commander's gaze turned icy. "Unique does not mean valuable. Their unpredictability makes them a threat. They cannot be allowed to continue unchecked." Ethan couldn't stay silent any longer. "You don't even know us," he said, stepping forward despite the danger. "You've been watching from a distance, judging us by our worst moments. But we're more than that. We're problem solvers, explorers, dreamers. We're capable of great things." Zevran turned to him, his towering presence almost overwhelming. "And yet your kind has waged countless wars. You consume your planet's resources recklessly. What assurance do we have that you won't bring chaos to the galaxy? Ethan took a deep breath, his mind racing for an answer. We've made mistakes, big ones, but we learn from them. We grow, and we don't just fight for ourselves. We fight for each other, for something bigger than any one person. Can you say the same? The other aliens murmured among themselves, their expressions unreadable. Zevran seemed to consider Ethan's words, but his gaze remained cold. Words are meaningless without proof, he said. If you wish to save your species, then show us what makes you worth saving. Ethan glanced at Lyra, his mind scrambling for a solution. Then an idea struck him. Your fleet is watching, right? They're monitoring this planet. Zevran nodded. Every move we make is being observed. Good, Ethan said, determination hardening his voice. Because I'm about to show you what humans are capable of. He turned to the escape pod, where the damaged energy cores lay scattered. Grabbing his tools, he began rigging the cores together, his hands moving with practiced precision. What are you doing? Lyra asked, her voice filled with alarm. Creating a distraction, Ethan said. If we can disrupt their systems long enough, we might convince them we're not as predictable as they think. Lyra hesitated, then nodded. I'll buy you time. She turned to Zevran, her glowing eyes fierce. Commander, if you truly believe humanity is a threat, then face them yourself. Show your fleet that you're not afraid to confront the unknown. Zevran raised an eyebrow, clearly intrigued. Very well, Lyra. I will indulge your theatrics, for now. As the commander stepped back, Lyra stood tall, her hands glowing with energy. Ethan worked frantically, his heart pounding as the energy cores began to hum with power. Almost there, he muttered under his breath. The energy cores pulsed brightly, and Ethan turned to Lyra. Get ready. With a final twist of his wrench, the cores overloaded, sending out a massive electromagnetic pulse. The alien ships trembled as their systems flickered, and the observing fleet above was momentarily blinded. Zevran staggered, his expression one of genuine surprise. What have you done? Ethan stood tall, his voice steady. We showed you that humans don't back down, and we're not afraid to stand up for what's right, even if the odds are against us. The commander stared at him for a long moment, then turned to Lyra. Your human has made an impression, but whether it is enough remains to be seen. With that, the aliens disappeared in a flash of light, leaving Ethan and Lyra alone in the clearing. Humanity's strength. The silence in the clearing was deafening. Ethan stood frozen, his chest heaving from the effort of his plan. The alien ships were still hovering, their systems flickering as they recovered from the pulse. The escape pod's energy cores were spent, smoke rising from the wreckage. Ethan turned to Lyra, his voice low. Do you think it worked? Lyra's glowing eyes flickered, uncertainty etched on her face for the first time. The pulse disrupted their systems, but it's not enough to change their minds. They'll want more than clever tricks. The lead alien ship descended slowly, its landing gear pressing into the soft ground of the clearing. Ethan felt his stomach churn as Zevran emerged again, flanked by two other aliens. This time, his expression was less cold and more calculating. You've proven resourceful, Zevran said, his voice resonating through the air. But resourcefulness alone does not make your kind worthy of survival. Ethan clenched his fists. What will? Tell me what you need to see. Zevran stepped closer, towering over him. Your species thrives on unpredictability. Yet unpredictability breeds chaos. Convince me that humanity can bring balance to the galaxy rather than disorder. Ethan stared at him, his mind racing. How could he possibly show the worth of all humanity in this moment? He glanced at Lyra, who was watching him with an expression he couldn't read. Then it hit him. You're wrong about unpredictability, Ethan said, his voice steady. It's not chaos, it's creativity. It's how we solve problems, how we innovate. Every challenge humanity has faced, we've overcome by adapting. It's not a weakness, it's our greatest strength. Zevran tilted his head, intrigued but unconvinced. Words. Show me action. Ethan took a deep breath, his determination hardening. Lyra, he said, turning to her. You said your people evaluate species by their capacity to adapt and grow, right? She nodded slowly. Yes. That is one of our primary metrics. Ethan gestured to the alien ship. Then take me with you. Let me show your people firsthand what humans can do. Lyra's eyes widened. Ethan, that's crazy, I know, Ethan interrupted. But it's the only way. If I can prove to them what we're capable of, maybe they'll see humanity differently. Zevran studied him for a long moment, his glowing eyes narrowing. You would leave your world behind. Risk your life among strangers who may see you as nothing more than a test subject. If it means saving my people, Ethan said, then yes. The commander's lips curved into the faintest hint of a smile. Fascinating. He turned to Lyra. You vouched for this human, and now he offers himself willingly. Perhaps your assessment wasn't entirely flawed. Lyra stepped forward, her voice firm. Ethan represents the best of what humanity can be. If you're willing to give him a chance, you'll see it too. Zevran considered this, then gave a sharp nod. Very well. We will take him. Ethan felt a mixture of relief and fear wash over him. He looked at Lyra. What about you? Will you come with me? Lyra hesitated, her expression conflicted. I cannot return to the fleet as I am. They will see me as compromised. But I will ensure you are protected, Ethan. You will not face this alone. Zevran motioned to his ship. Prepare yourself, human. Your journey begins now. Ethan turned back to the clearing, his gaze lingering on the pod and the alien planet. This wasn't how he had imagined his life would go, but it felt right. He had a chance to make a difference, not just for himself, but for every person back on Earth. As he stepped onto the alien ship, Lyra by his side, he felt a strange mix of fear and hope. He didn't know what awaited him among the stars, but he was ready to face it. For humanity. The alien fleet left the planet, their sleek ships disappearing into the void. Back on Earth, the skies remained quiet, the people oblivious to the battle that had been fought for their survival. Ethan's name would never be known to them, but his actions would ripple across the galaxy, changing the fate of humanity forever.